Welcome. I'm Jim Riley with Inferno Squad of Garrison Tyrannus. And as Tim said, this is day two of our 3-day InfernoCon. It's a virtual convention that our squad of the 501st Legion is putting on. And one of the big things that we're trying to do this weekend, in addition to bringing you some interesting entertainment and information, is to raise money for the Make-A-Wish Foundation. As many of you may know, Make-A-Wish is the chosen partner charity for the 501st Legion. We had a great start last night with fundraising, and we encourage you to click on the box on the side here on the Twitch stream to contribute to Make-A-Wish. For every $5 that you donate, you will be entered into a drawing for a great Star Wars collectible, and we've got some great ones out there. So I'd like to introduce our panel for this morning. We've got Dan Brown, who is our squad leader for Inferno Squad. We've got Hughes, Jason Carter, and Jason McNally. And so I'm going to start it out just kind of asking, how long have each of you been into 3D printing? I know it's been around a little bit longer than most people are aware of. I know a couple of years ago, I had purchased some 3D prints and just to help out with the costume that I was building. And earlier this year, I got a printer myself, but I know some people have been into it longer than others. So why don't we start with you, Dan? How long have you been into 3D printing?
I actually just started 3D printing this year. Like you, had worked with 3D prints before, but it wasn't until we all got stuck at home for, who knows how long, that seemed like a good time to make the jump. And, also like you said, it didn't really seem accessible until I sat down, talked to some people. Damon, our squad XO, was a big help there. And so I went from one printer to four at this point.
Great. Jason Carter, how about you?
So I used to work for a government acquisitions team probably about 3 years ago. And as we were producing stuff, we actually started 3D printing a lot of the material that we were producing for the government. That's how I originally got into it. So pretty much 3 years. It wasn't until a little less than a year ago that I actually picked up a 3D printer for myself, and it was a lot smaller and slower than the big giant industrial machine that we had that we were working with originally. But I've kind of got used to it and have been I don't know if my 3D printer is turned off for the last 4 months. So yeah, I would say that about the same time that we all got kind of stuck at home because of the pandemic is when I really ramped up my 3D printing.
Sure. Sean, what about you? How long have you been into 3D printing for now?
So I have been into 3D printing since Christmas last. That's when I got my 3D printer, and so I guess that puts us at what, 10 months and about 3 days. And it's been a good learning process. I've enjoyed it a lot. I've just got a CR10 Mini. That's what I've been using, and while it's not as big as the other CR10s, and we can get into that a little later, print size restrictions and everything. That's one thing you got to pay attention to when you get your printer. But it has served me well. I've had no issues with it. It prints like a champ. I've bought components to upgrade on it, but I really haven't felt the need to. And it's another thing we can talk about later too. So yeah, about a year now.
Great. And Jason McNally, how about you? I've seen you have printers going in the background on some of various videos that we've done. So how about you? How long have you been into 3D printing now?
I'll probably say I'm in the same boat as Dan. Didn't really start 3D printing until about April when all the restrictions started kicking in for Virginia. And then, like others have said, I started with the one printer, which was the Prusa Mark III, which is a great printer, but the bed size was a little small for, all the things I wanted to do. So I was like, all right, well, I'm impatient. Let me go ahead and buy another one. And then I went and bought another one because, it's still taking too long. So yeah, since about April, I knew about it for a few years beforehand. But again, I also was in the same boat where I kind of thought you had to have a certain level of technical aptitude to kind of operate these. And then, I just started watching YouTube videos and it's like, oh, okay, well, this more or less seems pretty straightforward and simple. So
Yeah, and that actually brings me to my next question, and we'll stay with you for now, Jason. What are some easy ways that people can get into 3D printing? I mean, is it accessible to a wide audience? And if so, how does one get into it? You just started talking a little bit about some YouTube videos and such, but for the average person out there that may have heard of it but hasn't done it yet themselves, I mean, obviously it's not plug and play like with a printer, a regular printer for your computer. You can't just plug it in and put in the filament and there it goes. There's a little bit of a learning curve and everything, but how accessible would you say that it is?
I would say that nowadays it is extremely accessible because you have so many different resources available, you even have people on Twitch who do live streams of, setting up their 3D printers and even just leaving their prints running. I think it really just comes down to first finding out what are the kind of prints that you primarily want to focus on. Do you want to do full scale helmets? Do you just want to do miniatures? Because based off of that, that's where you're going to kind of need to direct, your research, because, one printer may be great at one thing, but not so great at another. So you don't want to invest, the money into one printer just to find out like, maybe I should have went for the other one because, this isn't offering what I need. But yeah, I'd say it's extremely accessible nowadays, just with all the resources that are out there.
Sean, what about you? How do you think about this in terms of accessibility for the general public, or at least the costuming community?
I think it's extremely accessible. Over the past couple of years, the cost of 3D printers has gone down significantly. CRT CR10 minis are running right around 300 and change, and I expect those prices to come down further. Even resin printing has come down significantly in the past couple of years. So while it was once unapproachable, you can get smaller resin printers for right around $150 even. And granted, you're not going to be able to print helmets with that. You can still print smaller greeblies and the other items that don't come out as nicely in printers that you might want smooth. So I feel that it's a game changer for the cosplay community and costuming community as a whole. I mean, it has made that more accessible to more individuals. And honestly, I would like to see how much the 501st grows as a direct result of the 3D printing boom that we're having right now, because I can only see it helping.
Jason Carter, you seem to be like somebody that has probably been into it a little bit longer than any of the rest of us, just by virtue of your work there. And so, how do you view this? I mean, from someone that has used it in a professional capacity and now using it for a hobby, how are the hobbyists now kind of a little bit more easily able to get into it than they were before?
Well, I'll put it this way. When I first basically learned about 3D printing, I went out there and priced out a couple of printers, and they were all around like $2,000-$3,000. I mean, it was just astronomical. This is like 4 years ago, maybe. I mean, we're talking about like some of the cheaper printers were right around the $1,000 range, but then anything you would want to actually have was selling for about $2,000. So I just kind of put it on the back burner until a little less than a year ago, when I was at Micro Center in Fairfax, and we saw a little Baby Yoda printing off, and I was just laughing because it was like, oh, that's pretty cool. I mean, nobody has any Baby Yoda toys yet, and actually it was like similar to this little file right here kind of thing. But when I went over there and priced it, this was a CR10S that was selling for about $400. And I was like, what in the world? Like, that's the kind of stuff that was selling for thousands a couple years ago. So for the hobbyist, this hobby is exploding right now. It's even getting to the point where sometimes it's hard to find printers on some of the manufacturer websites because they just sell out so fast. But price has driven a lot of it. People being stuck at home has driven a lot of it. But really, I think we're starting to learn that this isn't as tedious a hobby as it was once imagined. We're starting to discover there is a lot of practicality in what we're doing. I mean, as far as the costuming community is concerned and everything, it is a little bit of a slower process, but it's readily available to the masses.
Yeah, and what about you? What are your thoughts on this about accessibility, especially someone like myself that has only gotten into this recently? How did you find it to be accessible, and what are your thoughts on other people kind of following that same path?
I think that these guys have done a great job at answering it already. And to kind of play off of that, when I started, I was kind of in the same boat that everybody else is. I didn't know what it was about. It seems really technical when you're looking at these things, and especially if you go onto the websites and look at the professional companies that write articles about this stuff. It seems hard to do. If you look up troubleshooting, you're going to be there all afternoon because there's all these really long articles about this and that and all that. But once I got into it, and I started off with a CR10, which is one of the entry level printers. Once I got into it, I realized pretty quickly this was equalizing the playing field. All of a sudden, I had the ability to print stuff that I never would get on my own. So I would never go to a prop store and get, a Princess Leia blaster like that. But all of a sudden, I can make it. I would never go and get, a lot of the stuff that I've made because of the cost. But now, because I can make it, not only can I do it at home, but I can customize it. And I can do it to my level of, whatever my standards are. So that's been the biggest takeaway for me is that when I joined the Legion, back in 2009, there's one way to get armor. You contacted a guy and they said, this is how much it costs. And they sent it to you. And now all of a sudden you got all these options. And if you don't like the options that you're finding from other people, you do it yourself. And Sean, you mentioned resin printing, I think, and the Greeblies and things like that. And that sounds small, but that is so big. Just being able to print off like little code disc for the hats and stuff like that is enormous. It's had such a big impact on how we do this hobby.
So Dan, we'll stick with you. I'm going to kind of like go back and forth on the panel here. And you mentioned about the printer that you started out with. I want to ask each one of you, what kind of printer or printers do you have, and what's your preferred printing material? And you just mentioned the resin. Your talks with Sean here. I know there's PLA, PETG, ABS, something else. So yeah, Dan, what how many printers do you have at this point? I know we had talked about you getting at least one other one, but which printers do you have, and what do you like to print with?
So I actually started out with the CR10, which is a decent sized gold plate, and I ended up picking up a very used small format printer. It was a Monoprice Select. Despite stern warnings from other people I knew, don't ever do that. So I started with those two and found, like Jason, that the need for speed was increasing. So I started looking at how to do bigger projects and ended up with the CR10 Max, which I believe is what you have as well.
It is what I have, yes.
And then a couple months ago, when we were at Micro Center, much to my wife's chagrin, I noticed that they had their Ender 3 Pros on sale for about $200, and said, I could really use another one. So started down that road. The material that I use is something you can find on Amazon. This is their Duramic PLA Plus. Honestly, I don't know if it's better than regular PLA or not. I like it. It seems like it's pretty easy to work with. But the caveat there is that from what I've seen from more experienced printers, they said a lot of this stuff prints the same. It's more dependent on the printer and the person than it is on the material. So that's the biggest thing to watch out for now is the price on all of this stuff on Amazon since the pandemic started to sort of jumped up a little bit. So you see a good sale, hit it.
Or if you see any, hit it. Yeah, I've experienced that myself over the past few months here, where it's difficult to find certain printing material there. So when I found it, I've loaded up on some. So Jason Carter, how about you? What printers do you have, and what do you like to print with?
So my printer is a CR10S. As much as I would like to have a little printer farm down in my basement, I've only got that one. And right now it's killing me because I want to print so much. And as I start doing bigger prints and just printing more, I need to have stuff working. So in the next couple months, Christmas probably, I'll be picking up a CR10 Max or a CR10 S5. The S5 would save me a little bit of money, and then it's got that 500 build surface. So just phenomenal. Nothing interests me more than having that giant build surface that for like armor, I could print the entire abdominal section off without having to split it up into several parts, which gets tricky. I don't know if we're really going to cover too much of that later, but just the ability to print a huge print without having to break it apart, glue it up, risk fracturing the product later is massive. The other thing that I'm going to be picking up very soon is a Frozen Sonic Mini 4K resin printer. When I saw that on Uncle Jesse's YouTube channel, and there's a whole bunch of different YouTubers that I don't know if we're going to discuss or not, but guys that we can follow to kind of help you guide you along. Uncle Jesse's one of them. When he showed that Frozen Sonic Mini, I think it was like a week ago, I was just blown away. It's like, yep, that's the resin 3D printer that I want. I primarily print in PLA Plus, but I have started most recently, I'm really getting into a TPU. The only problem with TPU is you can't really paint it very well. But it's a phenomenal product. I got some really flexible TPU that on my build thread on the FISD forum, I kind of broke it down how I could bunch this TPU up into a little ball, let go of it, it just springs right back into its original shape. The stuff is awesome, but it's you really need to dye it to get color to adhere.
That's really interesting. I actually haven't been following the TPU, so that's good to know. That's very good to know. And as you mentioned, there's different build size plates, and as you said, the S5 is the 500 centimeter by 500 by 500, and so of course the CR10 Max, that's a 450 by 450 by I believe 470. And so that's what both Dan and I have, and we found those great for full-size helmets and various pieces of armor and everything. But, and this is what I was told, the S5 with the 500 cube build space there, if you want to build droids, that's the way to do it. So you can print the dome of the droid in one piece. So. That is what I've heard is the way to go if you want to go in that route. So,
which I've made.
Yeah, and we can talk about that a little bit later when we're talking about different things that people are building. So, let's see. So, in terms of this, Sean Matthews, what about you? What printers do you have? What materials do you use?
So I've just got the CR10 Mini, which I mentioned earlier, and I primarily print right now in PLA. However, if I could have done it over, I would probably go with PETG. And the reason why is, and these are things you learn as you're going along. I mean, there's no Bible out there that tells you everything about 3D printing. It all comes through trial and error. It comes through getting in various forums online. The CR10 Facebook group has been a big help for me. But PLA tends to warp in don't want to say extreme temperatures. I mean, extreme temperatures will destroy it, but even high temperatures, if you leave it in the vehicle or something like that, you're going to find that PLA will warp. PET-G is a little more heat resistant, but for trooping purposes, PLA will do fine as long as you're not like standing stationary in the sun and um, the desert or something like that. You should be okay. But the CR10 Mini, I mean, it's been good to me. I do wish I had more build volume. I mean, I've been kind of holding this Bergman replica Din Djarin's blaster around, and I printed this just the other day, which, you know, it's beautiful, you know, being able to go online, find a print file and just print it. I mean, your heart's desire. I did a walk by for a kid earlier this year, and I didn't want to take my E11 with me because it was kind of hot out. So I printed off a Biker Scout blaster, and I actually gave it to him at the end of it. I printed it overnight, didn't sand it. And sanding's one thing, you all that are watching, that's the most time-consuming part of 3D printing. So they don't come out smooth. Resin printers are a little better, but you do have to put a lot of work into everything, and that's usually on the back side. But I printed this, you know, upwards, and I still had to cut it in half right here because the entire length would not fit on the CR10 Mini, whereas on the other CR10s it would fit. You know, I'm working on Din Djarin's outfit, and this, you know, the chest plate right here, I had to print in halves because the full size on other CR10s I believe would fit, but this wouldn't. So you can kind of see on the back where the lines are, and this is basically just epoxy that I put on. I mean, it's a solid build, but it'd be much nicer if I could do it in one go. So the advantages to the Mini are it takes up less footprint in my little man cave. It's a lot less expensive, but on the flip side, you're kind of limited to what you can do. And helmets, you can't print those in one piece. I mean, I had to print my Mandalorian helmet in halves, and that just increases the amount of work on the backside because you got to join the parts together, you got to Bondo the heck out of it, and then smooth it out and make sure you don't have that seam going down the middle. So those are just things you need to think about going down the road if you plan on getting into 3D printing. How big are the parts that you're going to print, and is that extra $100 really worth it to you? And in my case, it was a gift, so I really didn't have the option. But if it were me and my own money, I probably would have gone for a bigger one just so I could print larger items.
I do have to say the fact that you've printed everything that you have on a Mini is amazing, because I've seen how much stuff you've been posting, particularly with your Mandalorian build. So
yeah, I'm glad I have time,
yeah.
and I'm not in a rush.
Yes. Jason McNally, how about you? What printers do you have, and what materials do you use?
So I have one Prusa Mark III and then two CR10 S4s. It kind of started out the same genre as just the Prusa. What fits on the print bed will print phenomenal, but it's just the size of the print bed that is always the Achilles heel. And it was so much extra work having to get 6 different, you know, Sith Trooper helmet pieces, sand everything down, put it all together, and then now you got these nice big lines everywhere that now you have to go back with putty and fill, and then do all the additional sanding on top of all the sanding you already had to do. So that's why I just opted to get the CR10 S4, is just because it can just print everything in one go. As far as material goes, primarily just do PLA plus, although I do have an enclosure that I built to eventually start doing some of the other materials, ABS primarily, but probably set something up to experiment with PETG as well. But as of right now, I've been having a pretty good time using the 11-pound rolls from Zaltech, because you never have to worry about filament change. I mean, you just hit start, and I mean, you can print out like 2-3 helmets in one spool, as opposed to if you're using the little 2.5-pound spools where, you know, midway through a print you might have to swap it out, and then sometimes you get that nice big layer line, you know, midway through the print. So yeah, that's pretty much what I'm using right now. I'm eyeing more printers. I just don't have the space at the moment. So
Yeah, I can tell with all the helmets and other things in your background that that space is a consideration for your printer. So,
Yeah, yeah.
uh, and we'll get to that shortly. Uh, Sticking with you there, uh, just one of the big questions that a lot of people will be asking is, can a person get into the 501st with 3D printed costumes? And we can kind of do a quick thing on this, but Jason McNally?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm actually pretty sure that the Death Trooper CRL picture is actually a person who printed out that entire costume because, when Rogue One came out, everyone's, rushing to get the molds and stuff like that. And this guy's like, okay, well, I'll just 3D print it. And, he got it up to standards, and that's what was used for the CRL. Galactic Armory, I can't remember his name off the top of my head. I actually used most of his files. He was the CRL for the 501st Shock Trooper, I believe, or Coruscant Guard, one of those. So you can definitely get into the 501st with a fully 3D printed costume. It just comes with the downside that you do have to do a lot more work on the back end as far as sanding and stuff like that to make sure it's at the same quality as, molded pieces and whatnot.
Okay, and we're just going to keep this kind of like a rapid fire on this question. Sean Matthews?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm sure, depending on the CRL, obviously for a stormtrooper, if you're going for Centurion or, I guess a non-Rogue One stormtrooper, they probably want it to be that ABS with the little lopside and the helmet and everything to make it film accurate. But a lot of the other CRLs out there, you just don't have the molds out there. So Mandalorian, Death Watch, those type of things. A lot of the Clone Wars troopers and everything, you're going to find a lot more 3D printed items. And really, with the prices on some of these things, I mean, my TK setup is a Novus, and I got it for around $450 several years ago, and only had a 5-month wait, which is kind of amazing. But
it's kind of amazing you got it.
Yeah, that too. But now that price has gone up to $1,100 for the same thing. So if you want to get items made, they're cost prohibitive sometimes. Whereas 3D printing, you're just paying for the printer itself in the beginning, and then just spools of PLA, which yeah, if you mess up a lot, you're going to spend more. But I also think it's rewarding building yourself too. So yeah, it's not going to prohibit you depending on the CRL.
Jason Carter, Sean just mentioned the Rogue One TK, and I know you have some experience with that. Why don't you talk a little bit about that?
So when I first linked up with Garrison Tyrannus, the first question I asked was in a post: is it possible to get entry into the 501st off of a 3D printed set of armor? And my question was specific to stormtrooper armor, because I kept on searching through different forums, and I kept on finding stuff on YouTube, people building stormtrooper armor, but nothing where anybody had actually finished a set for the 501st. And I think the problem was people kept on running into the same issues that I was running into, where it's like, dude, this is not accurate in the least bit. And then unless you're building the model yourself, these guys, the creators that build these files, they don't want to make changes to something they worked hard on sometimes. I was able to link up, it's just a miracle. I just linked up with a great designer who every single time I would reach out to them and said, hey, this is messed up. They'd say, here you go. And they'd shoot me a new file like that night. I'm like, holy cow. So what I started doing was building my stormtrooper armor and posting stuff to the FISD forum. And this is a Rogue One set, so everything is symmetrical. It's not kind of wonky like some of the original trilogy suits are. But I started getting great feedback from people, even including one of the guys who wrote the CRO. So for the Rogue One TK. And when I started getting feedback from these guys, which even included the detachment commander from the FISD, these changes started to come to the design, and we ended up with a pretty darn accurate suit. So I've got everything printed off. I'm just in my post-processing stage right now. But when it's all said and done, I should, I mean, we'll see, but I'll be submitting my pictures to the GML here probably towards the end of the month, and see what happens. Right now, I'm just waiting on boots from Imperial Boots. They just opened up their store, so I ordered them the wave-ins on the 10th, and I don't know what the lead time is. I think it's like a month. But as soon as my boots come in from there, my gloves come in from Indoor Finders, and then my soft parts come in from the Dark Side Closet, I'll be set to submit pictures. And just because they changed the CRL recently for the Rogue One Stormtrooper, I talked to some of these guys, like the person actually wrote the CRL, and said, hey, it says Rogue One Stormtrooper is supposed to have this little eye bump now. And he said, yeah, why don't you just try this? I built it, and I've actually got a pretty cool helmet now that is even got that little asymmetric portion of it. And I think we'll be showing off some more stuff later. So I'll hold that up here.
Great. Okay. And Dan Brown.
It's interesting to me, this conversation, because I think these guys are all touching on an important point. The 501st is very much a show me organization. In my time with them, I don't think I've ever had anyone say, no, you can't do it this way. Now, they might have said, you probably shouldn't do it that way, or this way works better. But in general, if somebody says, I'd like to try a new way of doing something, we say, okay, let's see if it works. We put up these build threads and things like that. When I built a short trooper costume a few years back, the thermal detonator thing they sent me was just, I couldn't work with it. It was like trying to bend a sheet of concrete. And I started looking at the costume and the sizes and realized a Pringles can was about the same size. So the thermal detonator on the back of my short trooper is a Pringles can. Now, nobody cares. As long as it looks the right way, nobody cares that it's a Pringles can.
And really, for all we know, that's what they used for the movie too. I mean, the various things that they've used for costume parts in the films have been pretty crazy.
And it got to the point that my son was calling it short trooper snacks. But the takeaway there is, if you want to 3D print a costume or costume pieces, go for it. What they're going to do is they're going to look at it and say, does it look like it's supposed to? And if it does, they're going to say, awesome, well done. And if it doesn't, they're going to offer you some tips on how to make it better. 3D printing may be a little more labor intensive, like Jason pointed out, on the back end, because they all require finishing. But it is just such a great tool to get the stuff that you normally couldn't get.
And at this point, I want to take an opportunity to remind people that we are raising money for Make-A-Wish this weekend. And please go ahead and visit the widget there on the side here on the Twitch stream, where you can make your donation. And for every $5 you donate, you are entered into a drawing for a great Star Wars collectible. So please go ahead and contribute to the Make-A-Wish Foundation. Dan, I'll stick with you here as we move back. What costumes have you done 3D prints for?
I've done, that's a tough one, because I've done a lot of 3D prints that would work for costumes. The ones that I've done for my current costumes are kind of limited because I started printing during the pandemic and we haven't been going anywhere. So, the motivation to enhance something I already had was a little lower than it was to make something new. One of the first prints that I did was a set of the binoculars that you see Luke with. And I decided to theme them like my short trooper. So, doing stuff like this is it's cool. It's a learning process. I could show you every single flaw on here. I don't know if a general member of the public would notice, but I'd be willing to bet that if we asked Jason and Sean and Jason as well, how they feel about the quality of their work. When you're printing something for a costume, you do the best you can, you finish it the best you can, and you don't obsess, you move on. And whether it's something for your current costume or something you're wanting to build, Sean mentioned building Mandalorian stuff, I think. You know, you get it the best you can, you move on, and sometimes that means having a little character added into what you do.
It kind of gives it the lived-in feel that the Star Wars universe is known for. So
Exactly.
perfection is actually in some ways frowned upon. So, Jason Carter, what about you? Obviously, you've been working on your Rogue One TK. Is that the primary one you've been working on? Is there anything else you've been printing for costumes?
It is that is the primary one. I think I started beginning of August, and I set a goal date for Halloween. That's when I wanted to submit pictures to the GML and just have something to cruise around the neighborhood in. I'm probably gonna miss that because of the soft parts, but it's okay. I've got some cheesy like gloves that I picked up from Kohl's that I put together. It's like $4, so I won't be submitting those pictures. But yeah, that's the primary thing that I'm building. But my wife said, well, I don't want you walking around alone. I want you to build something for me. And I said, well, the only other thing that I really want to build is the Mando Beskar armor. Sean has got the pre-Beskar, which I thought was phenomenal. I was actually looking for pre-Beskar files and couldn't find them. So I found the Beskar armor files. She said, well, yeah, that's what I want to wear. It's like, okay, cool, go for it. So Sean's got the chest piece right there for the Beskar armor. That's exactly what I built also. So those are the two primary ones. And then I'm starting to print off clone trooper parts because I love the Clone Wars. And one of my next builds after Rogue One TK and Mando are done is going to be a Commander Bly build.
Great.
And then hopefully Sean after that.
Yeah. Sean, obviously you've been hard at work on your Mando. So is Mando the primary one that you've been working on? Is there anything else you've
yeah, so it's primarily Mandalorian, and actually that's really the reason I got into 3D printing. When Mandalorian came out last year, I watched it, and I mean, like most people, I was in awe. I was like, wow, this is Star Wars. This is, aside from, in my opinion, Clone Wars and Rebels, this is like the best Star Wars, and Rogue One. I really like Rogue One, but this is the best we've had since the originals. And I'm like, I love the character, I love the armor, I love everything. So I'm like, I want this. I got to have it. And so that's what sparked the 3D printer. And as Dan was mentioning, I mean, yeah, the stuff like this, there are very few imperfections, just because I've gone over it so many times and made it as perfect as I can. But the helmet right now, the first helmet I got, I actually bought before I had my 3D printer, and it was off some Etsy company. And as the show went on, I started realizing that there are just various small errors in the helmet, things that weren't correct. And eventually I wound up getting the file from Great Ape Studios, Dan Pattenden, who I think he worked for EA, so that's why he has such a good background in graphic design. And he just makes probably some of the most accurate Din Djarin parts out there. So I purchased the file from him for the helmet, printed that off, and that's what's giving me the biggest headache right now. Because while the non-Beskar armor, you can paint it, and if you have a rough patch, oh, guess what? Weathering, that's fine. Yeah. But with the helmet, you have to get it so smooth, and you have to have the paint and the gloss on there so perfectly that if you don't, when you put the Alclad or whatever metallic paint that goes on there, it's just not going to look right. Instead of that chrome look, you're going to have kind of a dull metallic look. And that's the part that I want to have perfect. And I think I'm on my second go around with it. I've already sanded it down, sanded everything off once. And actually I've got the shoulder piece. I'll grab that real quick. Take 1 second. Even this right here, it looks nice. It looks nice on screen, and this is using the Alclad, and it's shiny. But you know, if I look real close at it, I can tell there's imperfections. You know, there's some orange peel on the paint from just adhering the spray paint incorrectly. So put a little weathering on there. You really can't see on here, but as Dan mentioned, to most people, I mean, this is going to look like it's straight out of the show. I mean, they're not going to be able to tell the difference, the imperfections. Looks nice and shiny. Oh, it's Beskar. But for us, we tend to be perfectionists, and I can tell that it's not perfect. And I'm at the point with this where I just move on. And you know, he has two, so the next one I hope to do a little better and wear that with the pre-Beskar. So yeah, I think I kind of got on a tangent there, but
no, that's great stuff. And Jason McNally, we'll go to you on this, and then after that, we've got about 6 questions in the queue, so we'll go to that right after Jason here.
Yeah, so my favorite characters are clones overall, and then just through all the various seasons that we've had. I mean, you know, each different season you get a brand new design for the clones. You know, you get like the wolf pack, it's completely, you know, redone essentially with all their armor and stuff like that. So one of the main reasons I wanted to do 3D printing was, you know, I can print off like 6 different clone helmets, paint them 6 different ways, and you know, now I have 6 different costumes that I have to force myself to finish, right? So that's kind of mostly what I have going on in the background. I'm not sure if I can get it to.
Yeah, so I was going to ask, all those helmets along the top of the couch, are all those 3D printed?
Yeah, everything back there is 3D printed in
So
various
you've
states
got,
of completion.
So I think what on the far left is Wrecker from the Bad Batch.
Correct. Yes, that's Wrecker. It's a kind of custom Mandalorian helmet that I'm doing for my roommate. One of the Purge Troopers, that's a fresh print. I can't remember off the top of my head. From the latest season of Clone Wars.
32nd.
Yep.
Correct. Yep. And then the Purge Trooper, Commander Bly. Second Sister. Go the right way here. Mando, and then just another Phase 2 clone. And then I have the T-21, the DLT 19X. Let's see what else do I have in there. DC-15 and then DC-15A. And then I also have let's see if I can get all the way out here on this without it going all crazy. An E-Web that is in the process of being built here. So yeah, that's one of the big things that 3D printing will kind of allow you to do. I don't think I've seen anyone selling any E-Webs ever. So I just decided, you know, go ahead and build it, and I'm sure Christopher Williams will be happy about that. But yeah, it's primarily just the flexibility that 3D printing gives you. Like right now, I have some shoulder bells out back for my clone trooper that I just printed out some new ones that I'll paint pink for breast cancer awareness. You know, another event, I can just print out, you know, a different color for, you know, if it's autism or any other kind of thing. So I can just kind of pop those on because it's all Velcro for me.
Fantastic.
And just to kind of tackle on to a question I saw when I was reading chat, I primarily print in black and gray, although it doesn't really matter too much because when I do my prints, I kind of just completely coat it in filler primer. So the color that you print it in at the end of the day really doesn't matter too much. I mean, there's some back end things as far as what temperature you might have to print it on your printer, like if you're a black filament compared to, you know, printing white, but that's very, very minor things there. So
Great. And so we've about 15 minutes left in our session, and so we're going to do a quick, lightning round here of these questions that we've gotten in. And you just addressed one of them. What colors do you print in? So we'll go to Sean Matthews. What about you? What colors do you print in? And does it ever really matter what color you print in?
Anything I can get my hands on at this point. To me, it doesn't matter because everything I'm doing, I'm going to paint over anyways with multiple layers of gray and whatnot. So I think this blaster's half hot pink or pinkish and half orange. So doesn't matter to me.
Jason Carter?
Primarily black and white, but like even this, I mean, I've got Mando riding a blurg, and you can see I ran out of green towards the bottom. So yeah, it doesn't really matter. It's all going to get covered up anyways.
Dan Brown.
Yeah, not to say, exactly what they said, but all the prints that we do, this is a face mask that we make, and so you patch stuff with filler, primer, filler or Bondo or whatever you have, and then it ends up primed, and then you'll put the final paint coats on it when you're done with that. So I guess the base color was black, but it doesn't really matter. I know that people do amazing prints, and the colors are important, but those are the people that are not doing anything with them after they print it.
Okay. Next question that we have from our viewers here. Best recommended printer for printing helmets, Dan.
For printing helmets, that's probably that's such a big question. The one that I use is the CR10 Max, and I went with that. It's a little bit smaller than the S5, but the S5 is rumored to be hard to set up. So the Max had some features I liked. For what it's worth, Max has also been hard to set up. So I don't know how that fell out. But the anything. The Max is 450 by 450, and that's been plenty of room and to spare for a helmet. Yeah,
I'd like to show the viewers. This is printed on a CR10 Max or the CR Max. There, it's a Night Owl helmet there, so it's full size, and the entire thing is able to be printed right on there. So,
honestly,
okay. So, Jason McNally, what about you? Printers for helmets. What's the best one?
I think you can get away with the CR10 because I believe that's 300, but I just opted for the CR10 S4 just to have that little extra comfort room because that's 400. But the larger the print bed you get, the harder time you'll have dialing it in because sometimes you'll get a print bed that's like warped in the center. So no matter how many times you are trying to level the corners, it just messes up in the center because like CR10, you might get a warped piece of glass. So it's just kind of like the downside is the larger the print bed size is, the harder it is to get dialed in. But I'd say, CR10 S4, that's pretty decent. It should be able to cover just about anything you'd want to print.
Jason Carter.
Hey, really quick, this was a free file that I picked up off Thingiverse. It's a Phase 2 Clone Trooper. It's massive. I mean, massive. It's the wrong size as compared to one that's the correct size, but I think it was 350 millimeters tall. I was able to print it off on one shot on my CR10S. So that's one of the things that I've been doing recently. That Mando helmet back there, I just let it go, didn't break it up into pieces. So on my CR10S, I'm able to get like even that massive helmet there printed off in one shot. It was just a little wide for the bed, or actually no, it would have fit fine. I just took off the back so that I could attach it with magnets. Clone Trooper helmets are like really narrow around the neck, but yeah, even that massive thing there I was able to get on the full print surface of the CR10S.
Okay, and Sean.
Anything bigger than the CR10 Mini, and kind of explained why. The helmets are just slightly too big for it, and you can get away with printing in pieces, but it creates a lot of work on the backside that I think a lot of people aren't going to want. So, yeah, just regular CR10 should be okay, and obviously the bigger the better.
Sticking with you, Sean, what is the best site or location to get 501st armor or print files?
So I really think that's going to depend on what you're after. And I mentioned Pattinson earlier, Pattenden, and he's on the Mandalorian Facebook group. Actually, there's two of them right now that are specifically for characters from the Mandalorian. I regard his print files as probably some of the most accurate out there, and it's very dangerous when you use the term screen accurate because nothing's ever going to be 100% accurate. but his are pretty darn close. For shore troopers, I know this is probably more your area. I'm sure you have your own go-to that provides pretty accurate files as well. So I really think it depends on the CRL. It depends on the movie. It just depends in general. So you really got to do your research on it.
And bringing up the shore trooper there, Sean Fields and Mr. Paul's shore trooper build, those are the two that I've seen most in terms of being approved for the 501st. And I know that Sean Fields has also released mud trooper files now as well. So, and those are all free. Mr. Paul's is the most accurate, and you have to pay for those. And then Sean Fields are free, but they're all very, very good from what I've seen. So. Jason Carter, what about you? Where do you go for files?
So I will say that I'm kind of leery whenever I go to a dealer that says 501st approvable, because I think it was Dan was saying earlier, it's kind of a show me philosophy. I mean, just because something looks like it's going to come out screen accurate doesn't mean you're going to finish it screen accurate. So just be careful if you see that. But the other thing is link up with good designers that are going to be willing to make changes if you find anything that's just like way off. The two designers that I've been using have been the Galactic Armory for my clone stuff. I think the guy's name is Andrew. He calls himself the Big Baby. Great YouTube channel. I think pretty much anybody that's into this has watched some of his videos. And then the designer that I've been using for my TK armor is somebody by the name of Akira Yuming on CG Trader. And that's the one, like, they're the people that, like, as soon as I say, hey, this is off, they just create a new file and send it to me, like, in the middle of the night. I'm just like, holy cow, it's like a couple hours turnaround and they've got something done. But I will say, make sure you start tapping into resources that are available, like our forum, the FISD forum, whatever forum it is. Link up with one of those clubs so that you can get input from people that have done this before.
Jason McNally, what about you? Where do you go for your files?
I'll second the Galactic Armory, since most everything I do is clones, and he pretty much has every clone variant taken care of on his website. Also Nico Industries for some of the other things, like the I believe I got the Wrecker helmet from him, and the Purge Trooper and Second Sister. So those would be the two that I would recommend.
And Dan Brown, what about you?
I'll be quick because I know you got a couple other questions to get to. Two things that I would mention are, one, if you're looking to print helmets like these guys, honestly, a 300 by 300 print bed is probably going to be a little bit small. You're going to have trouble fitting some stuff on there. So that does put you in the S4 Max, S5 territory. The second thing I will say is what I would tell anyone who's asking about where do I get stuff for the 501st. Be careful and ask, people in your garrison if you're not sure about something. The stuff that you find on the free sites is free for a reason. So sometimes there's good stuff, sometimes there's not, but you don't want to take all the time, put something together, and then find out it won't work.
Excellent point, Dan. Okay, so just a couple of words from each of you to really do lightning round in the last couple questions so we can get to everybody. What's the best way for leveling your printer, Dan?
I use a piece of paper and you scrape the print head on it around the bed. I will say that if you're using, especially a larger bed printer, the auto bed leveling is great. Get that. It's worth the time to get it to work.
Jason McNally.
Two things. I use a file where it prints all the different corners, and then bed leveling knobs will also help. That's a separate print that you can find on Thingiverse. So they're just knobs that attach to the bottom of your printer to make it easier to turn if you have a CR10 or something of the CR series. So those would be the two things I'd recommend. Jason
Carter.
CR10S has auto bed leveling, but I use the one of the same files that Jason McNally was talking about. Something that prints a disc in every corner and in the center, so you can see the print quality on that first layer. And the paper. It always comes down to paper.
Yeah. And Sean Matthews.
Yeah, for the mini paper is perfect. Just all four corners, make sure it scratches just a little bit, and you're good to go.
Great. Who has the best completed props for the 501st Legion? Any of you?
That's a tough
That's
one.
probably Jason McNally question.
I don't know like who specifically does. I just started printing my own because I didn't really know who to reach out to or look for as far as like a vendor or something like that within the Legion. So
So
If you're looking for someone who does props, our Squad XO Damon is his printed stuff is excellent. He's really good at the printing and the finishing.
yeah, we're talking about a place to go to purchase printed items or finished items. Is that the question?
I
I
guess, yeah.
I think the question was, who would you say, does the best work?
Okay, yeah, that's going to be a really tough and subjective question, and again, it depends on what you're after. And I do want to bring up, I think, what you said earlier, Dan. If you're looking to get into this and actually print files that you can use that have a higher likelihood of getting approved for 501st, you're going to want to pay. And I'm going to say you're probably going to have to pay, with a few exceptions like the Shore Trooper armor. Again, Great Ape Studios, that's where I've gotten all my Mandalorian armor, and I've had to pay for the files, but the work is top notch and it's worth it. And the ones that I have seen get approved right now, since the CRL for the pre-Beskar is now out, I want to say that those are Darren Pattinson, Great Ape Studios files. So for a completed ensemble, I would recommend him. That's just because who I use and for that particular CRL.
Okay, and I see we are out of time for this, and we could have gone on and on. This is a fantastic panel. Thank you all for participating. Again, I would urge our viewers to go and contribute to the Make-A-Wish Foundation. And I'm going to go ahead and thank everybody for participating and watching this panel today. We hope that you stay tuned for InfernoCon for the rest of the weekend. We've got a great panel coming up next, Women of Inferno. So with that, thank you all, and I will turn this back over to Tim to close us out and to transition it over to the next panel.